Welcome to our next topic. In this topic, we shall be studying about the Sustainable Development Goals, which were adopted by the United Nations in 2015, as we can see in the background. We'll be studying these 17 SDGs in detail, a reality check as to what all has been achieved for the 2030 agenda by far, and the key barriers that we are facing to achieve these goals. Let's begin. So, what is sustainable development first of all? Sustainable development, as the word suggests, has to be a development which we cannot ignore. We have to develop. We cannot totally say that let's not do urbanization, let's not do any development, let's not do any infrastructure building. But what we also have to keep in mind while developing, to add this adjective to this development in practical ways, so that it's a balanced approach where there is economic growth but not at the complete cost of ecology. Sustainable development principles are therefore the guiding set of rules for achieving this economic growth, a social equity, and environmental protection. They emphasize that meeting current needs should be done without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. We must not exploit first of all, but we also must not at all over exploit. We must not also be greedy in our consumption. We must also not take it for granted. We must maintain a balance. We must not compromise. And these key principles include what? Everything that we studied recently. Some things that caused air pollution, something that caused water pollution, something that caused soil pollution. Now, conserving what should not be depleting has to be the key principle of sustainable development. In our last topic, we studied about depletion of resources. This is the entire opposite of that. This is sustainable development, which includes conservation of natural resources as opposed conservation of resources as opposed to just a second depletion of resources. Conservation of natural resources, conservation of ecosystems, maintaining the biodiversity, promoting a social well-being. The example of forest dwellers that I gave you, the tribals. So even they have an equitable social equity to them. Even they have the right of protection, social well-being. So we must ensure that as well. We must ensure economic stability. Now, just because we have to be supremely environment friendly, we cannot totally ignore the economic stability as well. And most importantly, population management. The population explosion that we've had is primarily the root cause of various key barriers to attaining the 17 sustainable development goals that were set. We shall be dealing with those barriers in the upcoming section of this topic. So like I discussed, the 5 key principles of sustainable development, as you can see, is to conserve the environment, to conserve the ecosystem, to conserve the biodiversity, to conserve the planets, to conserve the human resources, to control population, and sustainable development of the society must be done. This is a graphical representation of the same. Now, sustainable development. 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development was adopted by all United Nations member states in 2015. As we speak today, it's been 10 years. I'll also give you a reality check of these sustainable development goals that I have handy with me. So, these sustainable development goals that were adopted, why were they adopted? Because a need was felt that the resources are being depleted at a destructive rate. The climate change is happening at a very uncontrollable pace. People are not aware. People are not getting basics of food, shelter, clothing. People are not getting clean water and sanitation. We are consuming overly, we are producing and manufacturing overly. So a need was felt to have an international pact of all the nations to share a blueprint for peace and prosperity of people and the planet. So the main theme for sustainable development goals should be people and planet. Sustainably, synergistically, mutually, coexisting. At its heart are 17 Sustainable Development Goals of the 2030 Agenda, which are an urgent call for action by all countries developed and developing in a global partnership. They recognize that ending poverty and other deprivations must go hand in hand. Now, how will you end poverty? Let's say you will say that we need to end poverty by creating more jobs. Let's say you have created more jobs. Where are these job opportunities? In the cities? What will happen? People will move to the cities. Urbanization will happen. What will happen? Concrete buildings will have to be raised. And what will happen? The forest areas in the cities will have to be felled. What will happen? The nature, the planet, the biodiversity will suffer. So, the Sustainable Development Goals recognize that yes, it is important to end poverty and other deprivations, but it also must go hand in hand with strategies that improve health, education, reduce inequality, spur economic growth, all while tackling climate change and working to preserve our oceans and forests. So they said one thing cannot go in isolation. If you want to end poverty, if you want to educate people, if you want to improve their health, if you want to reduce inequality, if you want to bring about social equity, if you want to do economic growth, all of this is not to be done in isolation, keeping aside that okay fine, whatever, let it be, whatever is happening to the environment, we don't give a, we don't give a damn. We need to do it while tackling the issues that we are facing of climate change that we started in this module, issues that we studied of air pollution, issues that we studied about resource depletion, issues about preserving our oceans and forests. That's the goal of sustainable development. Now here are the 17 goals of sustainable development. The first is, like we said, that there must be no poverty. Let's do a fact check side by side. Do you think the member nations have achieved the goal of no poverty? That's not true. Approximately as much as 700 million people, 700 million people are still poor. Not just poor, extremely under poverty. And sadly, COVID 19 even pushed this number further, and the number must be more. The second goal of sustainable development is zero hunger. But as of the report of United Nations in 2023, it is said that over 735 million people are undernourished globally. Third sustainable development goal, good health and well-being. Well, good health and well-being, as we saw in COVID-19, was a far-fetched dream. The infrastructures still are not very supportive. We are not ready. The developing countries are not yet fully equipped to provide good health and well-being to everyone. The example cited could be of COVID-19, infrastructural failure, or a lapse. We weren't ready. Fourth, quality education. Quality education is said that in spite of right to education in India as well of primary education, globally 244 million children are still out of school. Education, giving education is one thing, but giving quality of education is entirely another thing. So giving a quality education till date remains a far-fetched reality. Gender equality. Clean water and sanitation. Gender equality again is going to be a very sensitive topic and a very country specific topic to talk about, but let's be honest, we have not achieved 100% pay parity. We have not achieved 100% professional parity, because of which we cannot say we have achieved gender equality. Clean water and sanitation. 2 billion people, we discussed this in our previous topic as well, a report of WHO. 2 billion people, billions I'm saying, 2 billion people lack access to clean, safe drinking water today. Not today, it was a report of 2024. Affordable and clean energy. We are yet to completely go green. We are yet completely to go solar. We are yet completely to develop on wind energy. We have not yet found affordable ways to use renewable sources of energy. Decent work and economic growth, again a very country specific topic, but the goal has not been achieved. The economic growth was again pushed back because of COVID-19. Then infrastructure, industry, innovation. In our next module, we shall be dealing with certain startups that have done a brilliant job in developing new infrastructure and using renewable sources of energy with their innovation and industry merits to find something of a solution. Reduced inequality, again the tribals are yet suffering the brunt. Sustainable cities and communities, though developing, the pace is very slow. Responsible consumption and production, we are still over consuming, we are still overproducing. Climate action, yes, we have many public policies dedicated for good climate action. We have various good governance schemes happening for climate action. The Ganga Action Plan in India is one such plan. Life below water. Water in itself is a big issue. Issue number 6 and issue number 14. The goal number 6 and goal number 14. Life on land, again, biodiversities are not being saved at the rate it should have been saved. We are failing to still find solutions to development balanced with infrastructure developments. Peace, justice and song institutions. The institutions are trying their level best to maintain peace and minimize the chaos, but we are still far away from a utopian nature. Partnerships for the goals. Internationally, these goals were undertaken by all the member nations of United Nations, but a synergistic international partnership is still needed. And talking about climate action, for a fact, 2023 was the hottest year ever recorded. So, although we have these sustainable development goals which want to do protection of planet and want to do welfare of public hand in hand, still a lot more has to be done to achieve these goals, and I think 2030 is very near to achieve them fully. Why are we not being able to achieve these sustainable goals like we thought in 2015 we would be do that in the next 15 years? So a report by Dr. Santiago Rodrigue jots down 5 major points of what are the key barriers to sustainable development. I will be using the same to share. Overutilization of resources and environmental decline. Like we studied in our previous topic, overutilization of resources meaning resource depletion, and environmental decline, loss of biodiversity. You can look at this picture. This should be a water body free from all these plastics, free from all these nets, free from all this garbage, free from all this debris, but it looks like a dumpster more than a water body. So unsustainable consumption and production practices place a strain on the environment. When there will be a loss of biodiversity, the environment is going to come under a stress. We studied this in our first module. Resulting in deforestation, habitat loss, pollution, and resource exhaustion. Tackling excessive consumption and embracing sustainable resource management strategies which are crucial for fostering sustainable development. Now, if we will consume these resources in a mindful way, we will tackle these issues in a mindful way, we will embrace resource management, is how we can achieve the sustainable development goals. The second key barrier that we face is population growth and a consequential urbanization. The global population continues to expand. Accompanied by rapid urbanization in many areas. Of course, the population will increase, people will migrate, they will want to move for better job opportunity because everyone wants to sleep with a full stomach, to have enough money, and to have shelter on their heads. Now, this trend of urbanization burdens the infrastructure, it burdens the services, it exhausts the resources, and it leads to other multifaceted challenges like lack of housing. So when there's less space on the land, we have to erect taller buildings, which leads to congestion, strained transportation, traffic jams. We can add over here traffic, increased traffic, heightened energy demands. And if now, where in one smaller area earlier only one house used to be made, we have erected a 10-story building with 20 flats in it, of course the per unit energy consumption of that area is going to increase. Poverty and social disparity. Poverty and inequality pose significant barriers to sustainable development endeavors. Countless individuals worldwide live below the poverty line, lacking access to essential necessities. This deprivation beyond material wealth. So it's not just people who are poor don't have material wealth. People don't have even the basics. It's a sad state of affairs. The fourth barrier is climate change and its ramification. Now, we have come at a tipping point where finding a simple solution would be too little, because the climate change now has come at a level where we see that substantially ecosystems are being destroyed, biodiversity is at a downfall, the temperatures are increasing, the weather conditions are becoming unpredictable, the sea levels are rising. So, all of this has had a huge impact on what we have not been able to achieve. The next key barrier that we face in achieving our sustainable development goals is the inadequate access to fundamental human needs. It's a simple thought that a beggar on the roads who is not even hand to mouth, he has no food that he has eaten, he has no clothes that he can wear to save himself from the wrath of winter, he has no money, he has no shelter. How could a person who lacks access to fundamental human needs think about that he's going to have an impact on environment? And this population is very, very, very huge. Now keep aside the beggar. Even the people who are not beggars, a little above that, the below poverty line people, or low middle class to poor to the BPL, they have very limited access to fundamental human needs, and this poses a significant hurdle to their understanding of these issues, to their own initiatives towards doing their part in sustainable development. And this is not just about developing countries. Millions worldwide lack access to essentials like clean water, sanitation, healthcare, education, quality of life. So, when you are hampered at one end, you cannot possibly think of your contribution because you're so hand to mouth on your own. All these barriers that we discussed in sustainable development, things that we studied in this module, a very important reality check for people like you and I who have the resources, who have the understanding, who have the vision to do something better for the environment. In this module, we have studied the adverse impacts of climate change, we have studied air pollution, we have studied soil pollution, we have studied water pollution, we have studied the causes of climate change, we have studied the impact of all these pollutions in climate change, we have studied what can be our adaptive strategy to cope up with the climate change and to do better to prevent pollution of air, water, and soil. In this module, we have also studied about resources depletion, how resources are being depleted, how we must use them consciously and mindfully, how sustainable development goals have a role to be played by an individual. We have studied about sustainable development goals, 2030 agenda. We have studied the key barriers that we are facing to achieve these goals by 2030. In this module, we have extensively studied about all the issues that we are facing. In the upcoming modules, we shall be studying about a few innovative solutions, a few environmental laws that are there. Until then, I hope this module was insightful enough to tell you about the environmental crisis that is there today, the need for sustainable development that is there today, and the part that we all must play in improving a good health and well-being, an equitable social living for all, and for promoting a public and planet welfare. Thank you. This was end of module number 2.